Have you ever been in a situation where you are learning a foreign language for a long period of time and you still don't feel comfortable enough in order to speak with another person in the target language? Or you just think that you haven't already reached this level of fluency? This video is for you because I'm supposed to talk about my experience with English that I have learned for so many years and still wasn't able to reach this level of fluency and be able to speak freely and easily with another persons. If you like this channel, please consider subscribing. You will find a lot of materials that are quite useful in order to learn foreign languages and how you can develop your fluency and how I did develop my fluency in 4 languages that I speak currently. On the other hand, you can find very interesting things and practices and advices, what you can do and what I actually use in order to learn some other foreign languages. So let's go back to the topic of English and how I reach fluency in English. At the very beginning, I have to say that English is my first foreign language that I have learned, and the whole process started a long time ago in my elementary school. If you ask me today, the whole process went really wrong because in my elementary school all lessons were held in Serbian, of course, and they were based on skill building. We were supposed to learn as many as possible rules in English, whether these were tenses, conjugations, prepositions, how to make sentences, which order to use, subject, object, adverbs, things like that. Generally speaking, it was all boring. I mean, the whole lessons were very boring, very difficult for kids. We were supposed to work hard in order to learn foreign language. I was one of the kids that were very eager to learn foreign languages, and I really loved learning a language. But on the other hand, after so many years of hard work, I was not able to produce the language freely. So I was able to learn the rules, I was able to read, I was able to recognize the structures in the target language in English. But on the other hand, after so many years, I wasn't able to speak freely. Especially, I was not able to talk freely on various topics, to have like a long discussions with other persons. And to be honest, I have never been in an opportunity during these lessons to talk so much, you know, because all the lessons were mostly held in Serbian, and there is no so much space to listen to the language, to listen English, and to be able to say something in English, except to answer like simple questions, things like that. After so many years of learning foreign language, English, and being able on one hand to do tests, to do them in a great manner, and on the other hand not being able to communicate in English correctly and freely, I was wondering what's wrong with me. I was wondering why I'm not reaching this level of fluency in English after so many years of learning and doing all these types of exercises. And I find out the answer to my question in 2014 when I discovered this famous professor, Dr. Stephen Krashen, who developed and so to say conceptualized the theory of second language acquisition. And as a basis, as a core of this theory, he says that we acquire a foreign language only in a case where we understand the messages in a target language. And I figured out that I was not so affected, I was not so immersed in a language, I was not enough surrounded by English itself after so many years of learning, because all the process was based on grammar, all the messages that I received so far in English were in another language, in Serbian. And as a result of this new revelation, I decided to enroll a master program in 2015 that was held in English, and I have chosen a topic of my interest because this is also one important part of the theory, to be interested in a material that you're reading or listening during your learning process, during the process of acquisition of the language. And it really became like a milestone for my learning process in English, because at this master program I was surrounded with the English language all day long. All the materials that were supposed to be read were in English. All the resources that we have been using were in English, and the whole program was international on the other hand, and many students came to Serbia to study this program from abroad, and naturally most of them didn't speak Serbian, so we were like a small bubble, small community of people who were communicating in English during the program. And on the other hand, of course, all the lessons were held in English. So there were so many, at one point, so many inputs in English language that I was surrounded with at that point, and it resulted with my fluency very easily and very fast. And out of sudden, when I started learning materials that were supposed to be elaborated during my exam, I started reading a lot of materials in English. I remember at one point I was also watching YouTube videos that were talking about European integration process, EU institutions, how each EU institution works within this whole EU structures, things like treaties and the whole history of the EU. And all these videos were, of course, in English. And on the other hand, I started reading a lot of newspapers relating to EU integration process, of course, once again in English. And I at one point had a lot of friends with which I was texting in English. I was like talking via cell phone in English, and this is how I actually reached the level of fluency. And I had to admit that was really super fun, really supernatural way to reach a level of fluency, and without any stress, you know. And on the other hand, I was able to listen to the English, listen to the inputs, listen to the foreigners that spoke English so well, and it was really a pleasure to have so many opportunities to be surrounded, to receive the messages in English. And of course, even after I graduated from this master degree, I continued, you know, like using English most of the days during the weeks. You know, I develop, and I'm still developing my English, and always trying to watch videos in English, to read interesting books, because you have so many materials in English. So if I want to point out the two things that made me really reach the level of fluency, even though I can say that before reaching the level of fluency I was probably at intermediate level. After so many years of learning English, I had a very good basis of knowing the English grammar. So I improved. I reached the level of fluency by doing two things, basically. Listening to the conversations that were held in English about the topics that were of my interest and super interesting, whether they were like devoted to informal conversations, like like things we do every day, or there were topics about EU integration process. And the second thing that I was doing was reading. So I developed my literacy reading concrete materials devoted to EU integration process at the very beginning, and because the whole process was very interesting to me back then in 2015. And after that, of course, I continue reading, and I'm still reading a lot of things in English, things like popular psychology, things like I don't know, books about productivity and similar things, everything that is dedicated to learning foreign languages and things like that. This would be briefly about how I actually reach a level of fluency in English. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you want to find out how I reach a level of fluency in Italian, which is a little bit different story, you can click this end button and find out. And the whole video would be in Italian, but don't worry, because there will be subtitles in English, of course. See you guys!